Good morning all, and welcome to this second session for the MSP Acceleration Workshops. I'm Stephen Porter. You may notice a slightly different name here. So the host for our session today, Sebastian, has unfortunately fallen ill with COVID. So I've stepped into the breach and I'm one of the first presenters anyway. So Stephen Porter, I'm one of the cloud solution strategists, and I support the team in promoting VMware capabilities to you, our partners. So thank you very much for joining us this morning. And I think we've got a very strong agenda for you here today. So we're going to be kicking off with kind of a business overview and looking at how you can use the VMware management solutions to support growing your business and getting stronger traction with your customers. And then in the second half of the session, we're going to be looking at the different technologies. And joining me, I've got subject matter experts from the three different areas that we think are really important for you as partners. As normal, if you've got any questions, please use the Q&A function down in the bottom of the webinar here. And at the end, we'd very much appreciate it if you joined us for a quick poll, so that we can get some feedback on what you thought of the session and how you think we can improve it going forward as we continue these workshops. The next one being lined up is all about cloud native development and containers and Kubernetes, and how we can address that kind of modern application transformation and application modernization that many customers are going through, and where you as partners can really help engage and support your customers. So with that, I'll kick off with the first session, and then we'll get to the subject matter experts in the second half of the agenda here. So part of the value of me kind of being on this call is that I've been in your position. I've worked for a number of service providers and really been part of building the offerings, building that traction with customers. And very much what we've seen is that the direction that VMware is going in. So if you joined us for VMworld just before Christmas, you will have heard us talk about cross-cloud services. And this is very much a theme that customers are looking to address or looking to embrace as they go forward with their IT transformation and their digital transformation to support the business. And you can see here what we're talking about is all of those different kind of cloud delivery platforms, things like the edge starting to become very important. Some of the classic environments, AWS, Azure, and Google emerging as key platforms that customers want to embrace and to utilize either SaaS applications or build applications. But we should not forget, the private cloud. That hybrid approach provides a lot of value for our customers, where they've got existing applications that run the business and then modern applications that are being developed. So in line with that, VMware has introduced a number of new solutions and capabilities that work across the cloud. And really, this is the opportunity for you as partners to work with your customers and help them address challenges and problems they have now, but support that evolution and growth that they're going to be going through. So what we're seeing from the customers that we work with directly and the feedback from our partners as they engage their customers is the platform is sometimes a challenge. And that's why, cloud native hyperscalers look very attractive, because it supports that ability to grow and scale. And that's really where partners become part of the story as well, using the private cloud, embracing the hyperscaler environment, and allowing customers to utilize that broad range of platforms. A key theme that we see over and over, particularly in this year of change with COVID and the pandemic, is a lack of skills in customers. Partners can offer a tremendous kind of substitute to help customers and augment the skills they've got, either providing relief when they need to focus on new applications and new direction, or being able to provide that safe pair of hands that keeps the business running and interacts with the technical teams that the customers have. You've then got, the classic utilization challenges where people invest in platforms, invest in technologies, but are really not able to exploit it, either because of the lack of skills or because they don't have the time to look at the platform, to look at the applications and understand where they're not being utilized, understand where they've been over provisioned. And that's really a great opportunity for you as partners to come in and help customers understand how they use the platform and how they get more value from it. And then, key to addressing kind of some of the challenges that have happened over the last couple of years, where we've moved to flexible hybrid working, is looking at how business has changed from face-to-face to very much more self-service, web-enabled, kiosk-driven. And that means availability is key. You can't afford for your systems to be down. You can't afford for performance to impact the user experience. And alongside that, you've got security challenges. And this is, some of the areas that we'll be talking about this morning as we go through the VMware portfolio and how the MSP solutions, so those tools that are available from VMware as SaaS services, can support you building new applications and new businesses. Key statistic that I thought might be interesting is an awful lot of customers are looking for outside help. They don't have the experience. It's difficult to recruit staff in many cases, and it's difficult to keep a broad range of skilled people. So you end up with very skilled people and junior people, and holidays, training, all of those kind of normal activities eat into the ability for that team to support the business requirements. And that's really where you as partners can come in and augment those skills to provide that safe pair of hands. So some of the areas where there's potential for you as partners are embraced by this deck. And you can see at the top here, we've got the classic areas where people are looking for multi-cloud services. They're looking at performance optimization. They're looking at, one of the classics, capacity management. Are we using all of the tools that we have available? But then increasingly, security and compliance are becoming much more prevalent as we move to that flexible and hybrid working. We're looking at automation as well. Self-service is a key area where you can make your services perhaps look different to other people. And then the automation of triage, problem resolution, the automation of provision is going to be key in helping you deliver those same cloud-like services that the hyperscalers are offering, but you can offer as a hybrid solution that works across your current platforms and your investment in the hyperscaler environments. So some of the areas where you can develop services, and certainly as a partner, these were the areas we were seeing tremendous traction and engagement from customers, that kind of end-to-end monitoring, the ability to look at all of the platforms and pull that information together and create a view of an application rather than individual platforms or databases. Looking at financial management, and we'll drill into that a bit later on. One of the great things about the hyperscalers is the ability to provision very quickly, but also it's very easy to leave things running and not really clean up and remove things that will be costing you money, but are no longer required. So this middle band here of networking insights, automation, logging are the topics that we're going to be looking at as we go through this session this morning. And key to what customers are looking at is embracing the traditional environment and modernizing their approach to VMs and how applications run currently, but also looking at what they're doing in the future. Containers, cloud native development, edge deployments are all ways that customers are looking to innovate their applications and change the way that they interact with their customers, interact with perhaps systems that they have from other partners, supporting that partner to partner connection, customer to client to citizen connection. So really for you as partners, what we've seen in the analyst information and some of the research that's being done is that this represents a tremendous opportunity. So you've got an annual growth of around 24% in people looking at cloud management, systems management, service management. And therefore it's a great opportunity and time for you to get involved in not only managing the platform, but using that as a lever to engage your customers and work with them on helping to support their business, helping to make the IT environment effective and really a growth opportunity. So if I think about the services that I've been involved with, you can create tiers of service and create more value for customers by increasing the level of interaction and automation and things that you provide to customers. But really, you've got these kind of 4 key levels that you can introduce into your services that you're working with customers around. The most basic, so perhaps the bronze level platform, is where you're offering visibility. You're providing that event management, that overarching view of the environment, and really helping them kind of see whether things are up, whether they're running effectively, and whether there's anything that needs to be addressed in the platform. But where you start to demonstrate value to the customer is in the optimization, and we'll certainly pick up on that in the later sessions. But customers are often challenged in making sure that they use the platform efficiently. I've seen situations where customers have a existing platform and they think it's maxed out because they think they can't add any more VMs to it, they can't add any more applications, and they've actually looked to buy more hardware. But when we did an exercise of optimization, we found that they were using it inefficiently. They weren't really taking advantage of the modern platforms that they bought. And therefore, we were able to defer spend, reduce the cost and turn some things off, and actually improve the performance of their applications on-prem. And we've done similar things up in the hyperscaler environment. So one of the partners I worked with, they offer a service where they look at the hyperscaler environment and they're able to provide a quick overarching kind of view of how the customer is utilizing the hyperscaler, but then identify waste. They're looking at unused resources, orphaned assets, and then looking at things like reserved instances as a way of improving that commercial environment. So you can provide that one-off hit, that immediate cost savings, and then build that into a managed service that continues to provide value to customers. If we think about the next tier up, governance and automation. Governance is really key because as people look to some of the compliance and the audit requirements, it's really important to make sure that you're delivering platforms from environments that are approved for use. And we're seeing a big uptick in partners and customers demand sovereign cloud. They're looking at where the data is, where the metadata is, and they want to make sure that it's within the country boundaries or that it's within the EU and supporting GDPR, for example. So that governance and making sure that things are running where they should be is a very important part of delivering a modern IT environment. And then automation is becoming very key. automation either on the triage side, so being able to identify where problems exist and correlate the information to identify the root cause, and then effect an automated change where it's possible, restarting services, quarantining, those kind of things. But then on the other side, one of the ways that you as a partner can differentiate yourselves is by offering a self-service capability, an ability to automate provision or extension. So you've got that kind of really important set of kind of guardrails, and then enablement activities. And then finally at the top, we can think about business integration. So providing that feedback mechanism, and that's part of the value of managed services, is you have that intimate relationship with the customer. And through the managed service, you have regular reviews, but you also get line of sight of change that the customer's making. You really become that trusted advisor rather than the classic reseller opportunity, help the customer procure or provide a professional service and then step away. Managed service really gives you that ability to become part of the customer, become part of their business, and provide that close relationship that, every month, every quarter, you're meeting them and you're understanding what they're trying to do and how you as a partner can support them. So if we look at the different technologies that we're going to be looking at, we'll pick up Tanzu in another workshop, in the next workshop in the series. But really, we're going to be looking at the tools in the vRealize suite and the cloud health environment today. And very much, what we're trying to do with these solutions is to provide capability across all of the different platforms, the cloud environments that we highlighted in that first slide, and embrace the change that customers are going through. So if we think about, where the focus is at the moment, vRealize is very much focused on the VMware environment, on either the platforms that you have in your data centers or in your customers' environment. Because one of the important areas where you can add value is to use the VMware tools, but not just in your own data centers, in customers' data centers, and provide that remote management, the ability to augment and support their staff in providing the business systems that the customer needs, and then, if appropriate, bring it into your environment, or to provide an augmented disaster recovery or backup or resilient type platform. So you can provide that value to the customer. And then over in the public cloud environment, we're looking at where customers are delivering their applications from. A lot of customers kind of start off thinking, we're going to have a primary cloud, we're going to work with Microsoft, or we're going to work with AWS. But the reality is that they often start to grow and utilize platforms from different environments. So we're seeing that 60–70% of our customers are becoming multi-cloud customers, where they're using perhaps email and productivity from Microsoft, but they're using data warehousing and data services from Google, and then they're getting a SaaS application from AWS. So you as partners can really embrace the customers' on-premise environments and their investment in the hyperscalers. So if we look at some of the different areas here and where we think there's potential for you as partners to add value, these are the three kind of key areas where we think there's opportunity. You've got the automation with vRealize. We've got the cloud health and that ability to provide governance and cost management in the hyperscaler environment. And then the operational tools, that ability to look at things that are running. I'm going to dive a bit deeper into each of these different areas. So if we look at the automation, this is really where we're providing that remediation capability or we're providing that ability to help the provisioning. And you can see here, what we're able to do is to provide a number of capabilities. So we can look at, with the salt stack capability, we can look at the configuration. We can look at the orchestration, so that provisioning, that delivery of services. And then we can look at delivering that across multiple environments. So what we're able to do is to start providing consistency about building an application, building a container, building a VM, and making sure that we've got the appropriate levels of security in place, that we've got a workflow that can engage the IT team and get authorization for certain activities before it continues. So really the automation is perhaps an area where you can start improving the utilization of your staff, or to augment the staff that customers have, to give them that ability to support more and to take some of those mundane tasks away, or to provide consistency. We very much used to use automation as a way of providing consistency, and it meant for our customers that they could request things like VMs, and that could either be done through a service ticket with ServiceNow with a standard form in it, or we provide a self-service portal that they could take advantage of. So what we're able to do is to provide automation that these different teams can take advantage of, the actual users for self-service provisioning, the cloud administrator perhaps to look at where things are being provisioned and whether they meet the governance and the security requirements. And then, the developers who are becoming super important and need access to pre-built applications, to services, and the ability to create containers and Kubernetes clusters that they can then deploy into different cloud environments. So you can see here the automation is focused on different types of users, but then down at the bottom, it's being able to provide that standardized provisioning environment into the different clouds that customers are going to be taking advantage of. If we think about cloud health, and we've got Keith joining us later on to dive a bit deeper into cloud health, what we're looking at here is that kind of classic, customers are utilizing the hyperscaler environments and they're investing very heavily in it. But what I've seen in working with some of the customers I've worked with is that they'll deploy things, but not very often go back and review what they've deployed to see if they can optimize it, to see if they can perhaps use reserved instances. So cloud health as that cloud management platform and security platform is really offering kind of three key areas here. One is financial management, and I'm sure Keith will go into that in a bit more detail. But we're looking at that ability to make sure that what you've provisioned, what you're paying for, is actually being utilized, and it's being utilized and it's efficient in the way that you're using it. You're not using older versions of VMs, which might cost a bit more than a more current one. You're utilizing reserved instances if appropriate. You're taking advantage of the fact that with automation, you can turn things on and off. So that financial management piece in the hyperscaler environment is really important because you're paying for what you're using. Alongside that, we've got operational governance. We want to make sure that the things that we provisioned are actually in the places where we think we want them to be provisioned, so that we don't break the audit and the compliance requirements for the business. So you've got countries like Switzerland and Germany where there are very strict requirements, and from a governance perspective it's really important, but also from a security perspective as well, making sure that the things that you're doing in the cloud are equally as secure as things that you do on premise. So another part of cloud health that you can take advantage of is secure state. And this is really kind of looking at the assets that you have in the hyperscaler environments and making sure that we can run queries against that data to identify security risks and help you kind of look at that shared security model that all of the hyperscalers offer, where they say, we're providing security of the platform. Mr. Customer or partner, on behalf of the customer, you have to think about security of the data, security of the environment. And secure state allows us to provide that information to you as a partner to advise your customers, to help provide that automation that implements security, that implements that governance model, giving you these kind of real-time insights into things that need to be addressed. And then the final area is vRealize operations. And really, I've seen a lot of customers who have the tool but aren't really taking advantage of it. And again, that's an opportunity for you as a partner to work with the customers to identify whether they have the solution available to them and really help them get the value from that capability that they've got, but they're not really taking advantage of. So, the areas where we see a lot of partners kind of working with customers, either as part of an assessment, that kind of first engagement with a customer, where you can look at, perhaps capacity management. Are they using the platform effectively? Have they got the maximum value from their investment in, a hyper-converged platform? Or are they still spread across their traditional servers and really not, getting the most from their investment in hardware or storage? We can look at the performance and availability and see if there are ways that we could improve the performance of applications by tweaking where applications are running. And I'm sure Lars and Bengt are going to kind of drill into that in a bit more detail to help you understand how the VROP solution, which is available as SaaS, can support you creating perhaps an assessment service where you can promote that with new customers and have that first interaction with the customer where you help them save money to become more efficient, and then they can start to trust you and build that confidence, and then you can offer managed services to them utilizing these tools real time or on a regular basis. So an area where there's a quick opportunity is systems monitoring, using the VROP solution and providing out of the box kind of standard reports and standard information. You can provide that overarching kind of set of eyes and ears on their IT environments to really improve their resilience, improve their uptime, and help you kind of get that traction with the customer that they want to buy more services from you. They want to buy, perhaps data center services or managed services, and then you can support them on their journey to containers, Kubernetes, and the direction that they're kind of taking. So to give you a flavor of kind of monetizing these different areas, we've got a cost per operating system image here for things like alerting and providing that kind of eyes-on SOC and NOC type service. You've got standard reports that you can provide on a monthly basis. So as part of that management review, you're helping guide them on utilization, growth, recommendations, and how they can get more value from their assets. You can provide compliance and audit type capabilities. So often audit and compliance and security for smaller customers are down on their list of priorities, and therefore you can help provide that remote support to help them address those requirements and do it on a regular basis rather than them panicking when they have to do an audit or they have to meet their compliance goals. And you can see that goes down into specific technologies and things as well. So, for you as a partner, you can start with these small incremental services and then build up into bigger services. So with the MSP solutions, the SaaS solutions that we're providing, it really allows you to tap into this journey that the customers are on. You as partners are probably moving towards that kind of hyperscaler, hybrid, multi-cloud type deployment. And at each stage in that cloud adoption framework, you can take advantage of tools that are available through the MSP program. So down here, and we'll talk about it in a second, assessment and design, helping customers understand what they've got, the size of the opportunity. One of the customers I worked with didn't know how many VMs they had. And they had a CMDB, they had a spreadsheet, they had anecdotal, but they needed data in order to be able to get that financial commitment from the board. So you can help them with that kind of one-off, low-cost service to give them a snapshot, and then support things like the migration. Other things where you can provide simple traction with customers. In that first workshop, we talked about disaster recovery and providing a disaster recovery service. So you can go in and become that trusted partner to keep their business running if they're hit by ransomware or hit by natural disasters, and then all the way up the top here to operating and scaling the system. So making sure that it's running, making sure that all of the elements required for an application are working together, and then giving them that reassurance, that regular review of how you as a partner are adding value to their existing IT team. So with that, I'd like to thank you for joining me on this first session, and ask Bengt if he'd like to take over and take us into the first discussion around VROPS.
Yes, can you hear me?
I can hear you, thanks, Bengt.
Good. I will just try to share my screen. There you go. You can see me?
Yes, we can, thank you.
All right, so as has been said, there are a lot of opportunities for us to use vRealize operations. We can connect vRealize operations into any VMware on anything environment, and we can make sure that we do on-prem stuff. We can do VMC on AWS, VMware on Azure VMware services, and so forth. Also Google environments, and wherever you have a vCenter, actually you can actually pull data into vRealize operations and vRealize operations cloud. So this is available for any MSP partner, of course, and you just activate it through the Cloud Provider Hub. And you can then sell VROPS as a service to the customers or to the point of contact that you have. And all of the type of on-prem versions we have, like standard, advanced, enterprise in the clouds. There's just one additional VROPS cloud, and that's the sort of compared to the on-prem versions is the vRealize Operations Enterprise. So you get the full shebang when you use vRealize Operations out in the clouds. So I'll send you these slides after, and you will have these slides. So it will be provided to you. So what's happening when we ask out there? We sort of ask in several things and surveys around the world, what would people like to do? And one is, of course, the reduce the IT operating costs. And what else can vRealize operations do for you? You can reduce the costs, and you can look at any productivity things, and the performance and the capacity optimization will of course make you in the end lose less money. And when I say lose less money, that's because if you over provision and you are having a nice system that runs very good, then you are just throwing away money. And let's have a look at that a little bit later in the presentation. So one of these type of organizations that has been using vRealize operations are really good with it. They have some things that they say about it, and visibility across all their environments. So where can these environments be? Well, I already told you. They can be on-prem, they can be VMC on anything. It can be anywhere where you can have a vCenter. But also it is possible, of course, to connect vRealize operations to native Amazon, native Google, and so forth. So insight, keyword, reduce the host usage by 20%. Well, if you know what you have and where it lies around, and how it uses your servers, and if you underuse your server, why not move around with the workloads to put them where they might fit? So less than a week, they were able to right size. That's another thing that we love. And optimize the performance. Okay, well, what did they do to optimize performance? There are several things that you can do. And they also saw what they needed for capacity planning. Now, that's cool. So you can see in the future what you need to do to capacity plan if you're running out of resources. And another one, Cognizant, just to sort of highlight stuff that they do. They are completely proactive. Okay, why? Yes, because you have a sort of a crystal ball in vRealize operations that make you see stuff before they happen. And they have they also have been helping with the planning here, and they have augmented any capacity in the last few years. No, they haven't. They haven't bought any hardware, so they haven't really sort of increased any hardware. They have not added any hardware because they were able to use their hardware longer and stronger, sort of the bigger, better, stronger message. So they were able to see what they used and use it better, and therefore extending the time it takes for you to not buy hardware. So this is a key thing with vRealize operations. So let me see. vRealize operations do have the ability to collect data from vRealize network insight, to get network data into vRealize operations. And it also has an ability to collect data from cloud health. It also has an ability to collect data from hardware, from network devices and such. And so you can sort of monitor a lot in your environment, and also put these things together to troubleshoot, for example. Then you need to understand where does the problem lie, and you will get shorter time to resolution, to gain time to resolution, and sorry, to decrease the time to resolution, and not be able to fumble around when you see problems. And it will become more obvious to you and to your customers what's going on. So this is also part of to get the insight, and getting insight is the key thing as well. You want to be able to get trust with your customer through visibility in the platforms. As been told, you can have a sort of a assessment for the customers, and you can do a full capacity management session with your customers, and you can see and optimize your apps, of course, using vRealize operations. But the main thing maybe being reducing the costs when you reduce your waste and orphaned assets laying around, and reclaim all these. do the right sizing, and do the, in the end, if all the measures that you have taken by looking into the crystal ball, by reducing all the unused resources and right sizing your VMs, then you will of course need to plan. So let's have a look. I have here a vRealize operations. I will go through to the home page. I will also resize this so it's watchable for everyone. So we have 4 columns that will show up when you first start vRealize operations. This is the home page of vRealize operations. This is a quick start. And first of all, you have this operational overview over here. So you just click this one and you get the operational overview. What do I own? How is it running? Is it okay? Yes or no? So I have 19 data centers, 48 clusters, 154 hosts. I have a total of 2,500 VMs approximately. And out of those, 1898 is running. I have something that is power off, and I have this amount of data stores. So in one click, I do have all this data for all of my data centers. So if I go through the list here, I have many data centers I can have a look at. And on this, these data centers, I can see the alert volume, if it has increased or it's been decreasing, and if things are going bad or good with this data center. And if you look on another data center, this might be totally different, and the alert volume might be very low, very high. And you can see that if stuff has happened recently to your data center. So if we just pick one data center here and see that it's possible to see immediately which VMs are causing problems and which VMs are suffering from resources, and which VMs are actually trying to get more resources than they already has been allocated to them. So that's this things that are coming up, our top 15 widget that we see here. So the worst widget wants more CPU than it gets. It gets CPU contention because of it. This is the one. Which one is asking for most memory? Well, we don't have memory contention there, so it's quite okay. But where's the worst disk latency lying, and who has it? Okay, it's a backup proxy. Good Lord. And you can see this is test environment, so it will make more sense in a production environment. So this is the first things that you get overview immediately just by installing the product. And then again, let's go to the stop using resources thing. That's reclaiming. So if I go into the access capacity here first, I do a little capacity training here. I can take a look on this, some of the data centers that I have, and one of these are the AVS, the Azure VMware Services data center. If I click on this one, I see that I have 325 days remaining. Oh, that means that it's 325 days left for all the resources that I'm using. Or is it? Well, the way we are using resources, if we capture that and say that, well, let's have a look on the history for 1 month and do a forecasting for 12 months. When do we hit the fan over there? Well, it's around this date. So the 21st of February next year, that's when things are going to go bad. And memory is the one who will suffer first. So it says that most constrained memory. If I go to CPU, I can see if it is just as bad. And it isn't. So the way we're using CPU is just good. But look, we have a lot of resources available. Do we need them? Can we go to a smaller model and use less CPU, but create an environment where we actually have the RAM available as we have, and so forth. So you see everything in front of you for your whole data center. You see the clusters coming up, or if I pick something that's very bad here. Sorry, I just double clicked. I'm sorry. I'll get back. Here we are. So I click this SD, for example, SC2 DC1. I will have several clusters coming up here. So you will see more clusters coming up as you have under each and all the data centers I click here. So in just one picture, you see stuff if it's going to go bad or not. So what can we do? Well, it says in the bottom here, you can add capacity. Oh, that's good. So it asks me to run a scenario, and I'll explain that just in a minute. But first, I'd like to do something to the capacity deficient here by using some else than planning more hardware. So I'll go into the reclaim, and I go to the reclaim, and we can take a look at that SC2 DC1 thing. And it says, well, how much can I potentially save if I do everything that says down in here? You have powered off VMs. Okay, what can you do to those? You can delete them. What can you do with idle VMs? You can turn them off or delete them. What can you do with snapshots? Of course, you should delete them. And what can you do with orphaned disks that are lying around that are not being used on any VM? Well, delete them. And if you do all this funky jazz that I have told you to do here, you will save that $1,637 in each month in cost savings. What will you get back to use as resources for the rest of your environment? Well, these 47 VMs will sort of get back 49 vCPUs and 87 gigs memory and 5 terabytes of disk. That's what you're wasting. That's not something that you use. And that's something that you are wasting of resources. I mean, with snapshots and idle VMs and powered off and orphan disks lying around. So that's pretty good small, I'd say a small Linux cluster, at least, with a lot of disks. I can even have a video Linux cluster lying around here to do anything based on the resources I can get back that I'm already wasting. So this is the way you would go about and reclaim your resources in your environments. If you have done all these reclamations, or let's just see if you have a snapshot lying around, it will already tell you how all about the snapshots. I just select these, and then I will like to delete these snapshots. Click on this one and get a list on how many snapshots I have. And if you go ahead and do the deletion of the snapshots, it will do the work for you. So this is connected to vCenter or vCenters lying around in AWS, in Amazon, or in Azure, or on-prem, or wherever you might have them. And you can do the same to all of these by having a user that is allowed to do vCenter operations. Hold on a second. Okay, so then next, we have reclaimed all the waste that we are wasting. So now what to do? Right sizing. Why not? Because right sizing will tell you, I have not been using these and those VMs for that long time, and no, sorry, VMs. Sorry, this VM hasn't been using enough memory and CPUs to have taken all of the allocated resources that are given to it. So let's say that you have 24 vCPUs given to a VM, and then you have 96 gigs of RAM given to a VM. Well, vRealize operations will measure everything for anything that you connect to it. How much is this using of those resources that you're given to it? So if you have a template in vSphere and you right-click on the template and create your VM, you're happy. It runs Microsoft Windows very good, and it's really good. But vRealize operations will tell you, has it got too much resources or too little resources as well? So that's oversized and that's undersized. Oversized VMs, for what I have selected are the SC2 DC1, I have oversized VMs. It says that I have 96 of those. And collectively together, these are not using 133 vCPUs and 372 gigs of RAM. So you already here, we can see we have another Linux cluster or we have a Windows cluster just lying around here in resources that we are not using. So now we can get back a lot of resources. These can be given back to the rest of the environment as resources available to use. So you can increase resources with those who have too little resources. And those are undersized VMs. Those are demanding more than they are getting. So I have 7 VMs that are demanding more than they are getting. And I only need to add 2 virtual CPUs and 6 gigs of RAM to make those run sufficiently and perform good compared to what they are actually demanding. So if I wanted to, I could now go ahead and resize everything. Just click on this one and resize these VMs. I get a list of anything that vRealize operations would like to do. So in this go, I have a 25 virtual CPUs and 68 gigs of RAM. If I understand that a reboot will be performed, then I can just go ahead and do this right now. If I differ in these results, I beg to differ. This is crazy. I cannot go down in RAM on this one, for example, from 32 to 16. Well, then you can just put in what you think is more normal for you, and then make that as a result of this. So that's right sizing. Undersized VMs, of course, same thing. It will tell you I need to increase, but then you lose resources. But as you saw, there are so little upsizing and a lot of downsizing, and this is not uncommon for any environment actually. So if you have questions, just put them in the Q&A. I have a colleague sitting ready to answer them. So if you've done all the reclaiming and all the right sizings, I told you we have a crystal ball. I will just tell you about this crystal ball. So this is I went into the first here where you have recommendations. vRealize operations will tell you about recommendations when you have normal operations. And for my virtual machines, I can just click on this virtual machine, and then it will tell me anything about my virtual machine. First of all, it will tell you about all the critical stuff, and it will have a suggested fix on all the critical stuff that it finds. And critical stuff is things that you need to do immediately. These are alerts that have been fired off that already is a critical thing to do. But the yellow ones, these are alerts that will arise if you don't do anything. So that's looking into the crystal ball. These are more like, well, okay, we are violating the SIS, the compliance package that we have here. We are violating that by something. Something has happening. Fix this hardening thing. We can go into the error and see what it needs to be fixed, and we can do stuff before it happens. And if there is anything that we can do, for example, delete snapshots or do something to the VM, it will have a button to actually perform the action. So when you do run that button, you get a dialog. I won't get it here now because it's a shared environment, so I'm not allowed to. But it says it has multiple snapshots and delete snapshots. That is not a performance thing to have snapshots. You all know that. You are a provider, so you know this. So if something arises that you can fix here and now, and then you can just do it, and that's a good thing. A nice thing about all this is that you have something called the automation central. Well, this is where you can actually schedule all of these jobs. So if you want to schedule the right sizing for your monthly day of operations, where you can sort of do all these tasks without disrupting the organization that it runs in, then you can go ahead and do the reclaiming, the right sizing, and all of that things automatically. So this is the run part of it where you can do automation on all of those tasks that we already talked about. So this is some of the self-driving parts of it. Another part of the self-driving thing is this workload optimization. That's how would I go about and put stuff around in my environment where it fits best. So that might be the last one of the optimization that you will do. VRealize operations are able to do optimization cross clusters. So if it finds that on this host in that cluster, nothing runs almost, you can put all the super loaded hosts, you can put workloads that you have on those hosts on the other one. So then you can get cross-cluster vMotion by using VRops, and you will have a policy to do this. Now, the last one I want to talk about is this planning, because that was also something that someone said in a super slide there. They love the planning. So if I really need now to add resources, I need to add, for example, on Friday afternoon, I need to add 10 new SQL servers on Monday. Will that fit into my environment? Well, you can workload plan that. You can do a workload planning for that and see if it fits. So within 5 minutes, you will know. So you can tell your customers or yourself that yes, it will fit in your environment. But also, when you need to add hosts, how many hosts do I need to add to accommodate those terrible problems that I had? I had 0 days left in my environment. How can I accommodate that? So I will do just some title. Which data center? Well, it was this one. I had which cluster? Well, all of these are bad, I'm thinking, so it doesn't matter. Select server type. Okay, so this is interesting because you can already select servers that you already have in the cluster. So if you're buying from Dell or HP or whatnot, you can already say that I would like to add these type of servers. This is the one I use. Or you can sort of select from your new vendor and say that, well, I'd like to have an HPE something. And as you remember, I struggled with memory performance, and I will just sort on the memory area and I find something that's, well, this one is a very cool server. This is what I'm going to use. So how many of those? Well, let's start out with 3, 4, 5, 6 of those and see what happens. I will just put the date a little bit in the future and then run this scenario. Then I will get some idea on, is this going to accommodate and fix stuff? Well, at least, okay, so I already was lost of resources. And when I added all those servers, I really got up to this amount of available capacity. So now I really accommodated the problem, no problem at all. So this will never hit when the CPU runs out. And memory, same. Well, I didn't pick a good cluster to show this off. But then you would see that you will reach longer into the future before you hit the fan over there, maybe. And that could be 1 to 2 years in, or over a year. We are operating with a year or not. So that's what we do. And it says, this is how much it will cost. This is how much it will be for you to add these resources. I won't say that. So how are we doing on time? I haven't the clock in front of me.
I think you've got another couple of minutes if there's other things you want to touch.
Yeah, I will do just about the troubleshooting. So a cool thing in VRealize operations is that it's really, really good at troubleshooting. So let's see that we have some problems with some resource. We have a sort of a surveillance on anything, and then we go to the workbench to try to find out what's going on. Someone has called me about, well, these are older things that has been lying around here. I will just go into one of them. It could be a server. It could be something that you need to take a look at. Actually, I will pick something else because this is really, really good. So I'll just search for, let's say, DC. I need to be a data center. These are virtual machines. Let's see. This one is available. So the DC North something. And when I get into that workbench, this troubleshooting workbench, I have 3 columns there. I have one for events. So what has happened recently to it? There was some resynchronization going on, some network data transmit rate that was increased a little bit. It had some spikes lying around here in CPU ready, so it was ready to do some work, couldn't get some processes, and so forth. So you have events happening all around here. And there is this property changes. Who has tampered with my stuff? Who has really done something to my VMs? Has anyone done any changes that should be there or not be there? You'll get the evidence in this column. Something has happened. And now there is also the anomalous metrics in the VROps. You have this dynamic threshold. So it goes together with your upper and lower work during the day and lies around as you work through the day. It can go up, it could go down. The dynamic threshold will follow your workload. But if anything happens outside that, it will actually tell you this is not good for us. Let's have a look. And with these metrics, you can even go further down and just troubleshoot these metrics together with other usual metrics that are usual suspect metrics that you have in your environment. So if I click this dot over here, and you see the metrics lights up as a Christmas tree, when you go into these metrics, you get these metrics and you can see it over time. Nice. But you have some favorite metrics there. For example, the contention metrics. All of the contention metrics, like you were going to do these metrics, alerts as a service, you have 5 or 4 maybe alerts per VM. These could be the contention parameters, the memory contention, the dropped packets, and for example, the average latency. So if I want to add those under my, well, discovered problem, then I would just go ahead and click this over here, and everyone will be popping up underneath each other. And I can really see where is the problem coming from. And if we have VRNI that Atif is going to talk about, alerts coming in from VRNI will also be able to pop up here as well. And if it's hardware related, also it will be popping up here. So it's possible to collect all these metrics and show them underneath each other. If I wanted to investigate all the metrics around that time, because then I have a huge one, then everyone can resize and go just and discover that. And here you see breaches in the dynamic threshold. These are orange here. Right, so this was the troubleshooting workbench. From the homepage, we have now sort of demonstrated the reclaiming waste of resources. We've seen the right sizing. We've looked into the crystal ball a little bit, and we've seen if we have done all that planning, how to add resources, remove resources without actually doing it, to see if you can accommodate the problems. And then we also seen the workbench as a troubleshooting resolution.
Thank you, Bengt. That was a brilliant demo. I hope everybody appreciated what they have seen, and if you think it's interesting, we can certainly do a one-to-one session with you and really dive into the capabilities. But I hope you appreciate that you can see the value of VROPS there, and the fact that we can use it to support the conversation and start the conversation with the customer, and then build managed services that provide that regular review and update. What I'd like to do now is to hand over to Atif, who's going to take us through another capability in the utilise portfolio. This is around the network insights, but it can be an important part of your cloud adoption, looking at application dependency and bringing these pieces together. So I'd like to hand over to Atif now.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, and you can see my screen as well?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thanks for confirming. I'm just going to switch off the camera so I can preserve my bandwidth, because I am tethering my phone right now. So, okay. Thanks everyone for joining and giving me an opportunity to talk about utilise Network Insight. Just as a quick intro, my name is Atif Qadeer. I'm a solution engineer focusing on network and security. utilise Network Insight is the product I have immense love for, to the point that I've been the solo author for Network Insight hands-on lab for last 4 years. And I think it's a great product in terms of what it can show. So let's go through, what Network Insight is, right? So when we talk about Network Insight, it's our flagship product when it comes to the virtual cloud network in terms of providing telemetry and visibility across, different clouds, whether it is private cloud or the cloud providers that are available. That includes, the VCPP partners. That includes VMware Cloud on AWS, uh, native AWS, Azure, VMware services, and GCVE and things like that. And it gathers all the telemetry from different data sources to make sense of the information for different type of use cases. So it basically covers the data center space, it covers the application space, and then, glues everything together to give you that, unified view of what is, required. So the important thing is that, we talked about assessment, we talk about, planning and things, but I think it's really important to understand what the platform is. What does it offer? What can we do with the platform, right? So there's a bit of history, and history is always good, is that when we talk about vRealize Network Insight, and by the way, it's a click-through deck that I've created. It's a whiteboard. So, and just because I have some bandwidth logistical challenges, at any point you feel that my audio is chopping off or something's not working, just give me a shout quickly, please. So with Network Insight, the story started from operationalizing NSX. However, there's actually a myth that, you need NSX to run vRealize Network Insight, and that is totally incorrect. You do not need NSX to run vRealize Network Insight. The story started that back in 2013, the developers who wrote the original code base for NSX left VMware and created a new startup called Arkin, which is a Hindi language word, which means ray of light. And Arkin.net was a SaaS product to understand customers' data center flows and provide visibility how you would, embark on a zero trust model, right? So the story was very, very focused on operationalizing NSX, right? VMware then acquired Arkin.net in 2017, and we rebranded the product as vRealize Network Insight, right? And since then, the product has evolved and morphed into, leaps and bounds in terms of the capabilities. So the story is that, when we talk about a data center, we have the physical layer, but because VMware abstracts everything, we call it SDDC, right? And our SDDC has the automation layer, which includes things like vRealize automation. You can also classify VCD into that bucket as well. We then have the business function. So, in the previous session, you were looking at, space reclamation, you were looking at business planning. Can I fit these many, hosts and VMs? So business is another aspect. And then we've got the operations pillar, where, you've got the stack of vRealize suite that includes Network Insight, vRealize operations, log insight, and things like that. So this is where vRealize Network Insight actually sits. So it sits in the operational stack. And our SDDC is made up of, compute, storage, network. We call it the private cloud. And we have the other cloud providers as well. So what does vRealize Network Insight do? So what we do is we cover the operational disciplines. So the product is actually very, very targeted on operational disciplines. It's all about visibility and control, config and compliance, a consistent security posture, and then application discovery that we'll be touching on today as well. So that's going to be the important aspect today. And then the last bit is assurance and verification, which basically comes from an acquisition we made from a company called Veriflow, which is all focused on intent-based networking. So what we see in a traditional, a typical data center or a classical data center is that, once you rack and stack switches and routers, the only thing that changes over time is actually the routing elements, right? So the BGP would change, the OSPF, and these type of configurations would change. You would introduce firewalls and things. So that assurance and verification bit is also part of vRealize Network Insight. So what we do is we ingest data from the compute landscape to make that happen. We call it, a data source. So your vSphere is a data source. Your network in this case, NSX could be a data source, but again, like I said, NSX is not a prerequisite for this. Um, your vSphere distributed switch is actually a data source. And then we can ingest data from the physical layer as well, because obviously from an SDDC perspective, everything is sitting on a physical layer, which includes, the likes of different switching hardware vendor. That includes Arista, Juniper, Cisco, all the, popular ones that we know of. So we can ingest data from the physical layer. We can also ingest data from different cloud providers as well. That includes VMware Cloud on AWS, native AWS, GCVE, as well as other Azure VMware services and native Azure as well, to make sense of the applications, because applications could be a heterogeneous pool of resources which is scattered across different cloud providers. So what we do is we apply correlation and analytics. So there's a machine learning element built into the product. So because we're getting so much data and telemetry from different data sources, so the idea is that we dedupe some of that information and see only the relevant information that is applicable to us, or make fit for purpose. Now, this inward arrow is a most important thing. One thing to bear in mind is that Network Insight is a passive product. By passive, I mean that there is no push button to say, go out and fix my application stack, as well as the problems in the underlying architecture, such as Cisco, Arista, because a customer environment could be made up of multiple hardware vendors, as well as different software capabilities as well at the same time. But what we can do is we can take an informed decision by looking at the troubleshooting metrics, looking at different aspects and things like that. So one thing to bear in mind, and that is very, really important, because when we go into the virtual network assessment, which is actually a free service you can offer to your customer to quickly gauge and assess where they stand in terms of their zero trust model and other use cases. The passive element becomes really important, because you're not jeopardizing the data center in any shape or form. All you're doing is ingesting data and replaying it back to them in a very synthesized form factor. So our data sources are flow data. So we rely on the vSphere distributed switch. We rely on SNMP as well for richer data set. And then what we do is, on the actual physical switches, we execute read-only commands to get information from the switching ecosystem, such as is the PDU down, is actually the is the MTU configured correctly, and things like that. What is the throughput and run rate of the switch port data, and things like that. As a result of that, we get 360-degree visibility. We can do micro-segmentation planning, which is obviously a very, very heavy-duty industry buzzword now. But effectively, it's your journey to zero trust model. And then troubleshooting, because we're pulling in the telemetry from so many different data sources, we can actually pinpoint where the problem is, right? Where the challenge is, and take away the blame game culture and target the blame in a funny way, right? So this is what we realized Network Insight is. It's all about operationalizing cloud, but obviously very, very network savvy as well at the same time. Now you would think that it's a very complex product because you're pulling in a lot of telemetry, but we've made it easy. The help is inside the product. So we really don't want customers or your customers to go out and Google things, or look for things in other search engines. So the product has the entire help built inside the ecosystem. So it has this concept of natural search, which we'll see in the demo as well. As you try to create a syntax looking for something, it will actually start to give you the possible combinations to complete that syntax, so you don't really have to remember any query. And again, the help is there for most commonly used syntax queries that are used in the industry with regards to vRealize Network Insight. So a little bit on the architecture again. So the architecture is basically made up of two main units, two main artifacts. So one is actually the collector, which collects data and then we have the platform, right? So Network Insight comes in two form factors, and the illustration you see in front of you is basically what we offer from the VMware Cloud Services, which is actually the platform is hosted on VMware Cloud Services as a SaaS instance. You connect the collector, introduce the data source from a vCenter, and all those other data sources like NetFlow and Flow data to harvest that data and push that telemetry into the VMware Cloud Services, where the platform would actually show you the things and you will build your use cases based on that. So it's a very, very simple ecosystem from that perspective. We can then connect to different, cloud providers as well. Like I said, that we support. That's in the support matrix. And then, it's a very, very simple and quick architecture to deliver, because think of this whole architecture as a passive in nature. You connect different data sources, and you can't really push anything back, right? So it's actually a one-way ecosystem. But the important thing is that we are doing all of that because the world of application is a complex world, right? So some organizations go through merger and acquisitions, people move on, sometimes configuration management systems are not accurate, and sometimes we would just leave that one single virtual machine because you don't know really that, if you shut down that machine, you decommission that machine, what will be the impact on 5 other virtual machines that actually make up this bulk of application, right? So the idea is that we decipher all of that. And the good thing about Network Insight and that is the market leading stack, is that we rely on the flow data. We don't push any agents into the virtual machines or any containers because they're stateless anyway. We just look and rely on the flow data and tap everything at the virtual NIC level to bring in the intelligence and telemetry that we'll be seeing in the demo in next few minutes. So it's all about decoupling the application and understanding and giving it an application context and persona. So what we do is we do application discovery. So application discovery is through various methods. If you have a very, 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 very robust server naming convention, then you can rely on that as well. Otherwise, we can use the machine learning element, which will actually map out the flows and say that 5 of these virtual machines constitute towards an application. Now, sometimes that the name of that application may not be the one you're looking for, but it will be an application context where you can actually rename it. But the idea is that it takes away all of that guesswork. And again, think of it that organizations go through merger and acquisitions. You may have a naming convention today, but what was the naming convention 4 years ago, right? So there could be inconsistency challenges, and looking at different type of regular expressions to create some permutations can be challenging, right? So think of it like planning application discovery, application migration, because again, merge and acquisition use case, you want to vacate an entire data center. How would you actually create an application stack so that if you use some other funky technologies underneath, like NSX as an example, or use any other hardware vendor to create layer 2 stretches and things, how would you actually understand that 5 of those applications move to another data center, continue to talk to the legacy data center till everything is evacuated? How could you actually mitigate traffic tromboning and these type of things, right? So application discovery, like I said, could be based on naming convention. We can hook up to configuration management systems like ServiceNow. If you are following the best practices from a VMware standpoint, we can rely on the tags as well. But again, in all of that, the flow-based machine learning element actually stands out from the crowd. So what happens is that we analyze the flows, which is actually a perpetual activity that happens behind the scene, and it starts to actually create the tiering for those virtual machines and start to classify them as well. And it is not like a one-time operation that you have just created an application and it will stop. If that application has members that are added or removed, that application ecosystem, the Network Insight would actually tell you that there's an update available for that application as well. So actually, what I'll do is I'll stop here and I'll quickly go into the demo so that we can make some sense of what it is. Are there any questions in the chat that I need to cover?
There was just one question, Atif, while you get the demo going, and that was about the version of VMware that might be required.
One question,
there.
if any cloud has some trial version, when can we only perform some assessment? For example, migration to VMC must pay for the first day. Well, you can use obviously trial, but again, that's a point in time picture. But the thing to bear in mind is that it's an ongoing activity. You need a license or a subscription in place so that you can actually run that campaign till you've migrated everything. And then you have to think about the day two as well. So it's not literally like you you use the trial to assess and you stop there type of thing. If I've understood your question correctly, but I'll come back to this question again. So just back into the demo quickly. So what you see on the screen is the UI for vRealize Network Insight, which is quite simple. Right now it's in the dark mode. You can actually have the normal mode as well, where you've got the white background. And what you see is that we've got two main sections. One is actually plan, and then the other one is operate and troubleshoot. So the plan element is basically, which we'll be talking about, a virtual network assessment. So you deploy the collector, you request the network insight, SaaS instance as a trial, or you stand up one as another tenant. There are options. And then we literally go in and hook up the vCenter and configure the VDS to push out the flow data to through the collector to this, and you'll see that in the interface. And the first use case we have is planning microsegmentation. Despite of the fact it says planning microsegmentation, and that was the original remit of the product when it came into inception, what we are showing here is we are decoupling or unraveling what happens in the vSphere distributed switch, because that's actually a dark art, right? And that actually helps you drive conversations in terms of traffic optimization, security conversations, as well as application conversations, even to the point you start to build up really complex use cases that are you thinking about migration, are you thinking about decommissioning? So the first thing is, if you focus on the right hand side on this traffic distribution, we can see that this particular data center, in this particular data center, 100% of the traffic is east-west. We have 2% switch traffic and 98% routed traffic, which from a networking stance is really bad practice, because we need to see a balance. What that means is that the traffic is sitting on different VLANs. So if the VM1 needs to communicate to VM2 as an example, then there's a lot of hairpinning happening behind the scene. And an optimized way of doing that is to abstract the network layer in some sort of software defined networking, and NSX in this case is the answer. So where we would actually keep the traffic inside the hypervisors, so that you can save on the top of rack switch, the firewall, and many of the goodness that come from an NSX perspective. So it starts to generate an NSX conversation very easily. Then you have the VM to VM traffic. Then we have on the per host cloud network, and then how much of the traffic is going to internet. So despite of the fact it says 0, ignore the demo. We have 574 gig of traffic going to the internet as well at the same time. On the left hand side, literally what I'm showing you is an out of box experience when you deploy Network Insight, which typically takes no more than like 2 hours end to end, subject to prereqs are met. We have the view of the VDSs that are configured in terms of your VLAN distribution. And the story here is that if I focus on VLAN 1049 as an example, I can see VLAN 1049 is communicating to these are the VLANs. It's also talking to internet. It's also talking to shared physical infrastructure. And by shared physical infrastructure means DNS, NTP, CIF shares, storage, things like that, right? And it's also talking to some physical infrastructure as well. It means the traffic is actually leaving the east-west world from this 100% virtualized into some physical aspects as well at the same time. These lines are the flows, and that is the secret sauce for network insight. So we can actually go into every single flow and dissect, what those flows are. So an example could be, Microsoft has asked the customers to move from LDAP to secure LDAP, and they haven't provided any tooling. So from Network Insight, we can actually create a very, very, simple to complex dashboard to understand the devices or the app, the machines that are using LDAP services and could be the candidate for, migration, right? So what we then do is we dive into a VLAN as an example, and our, test VLAN is this VLAN 1049, and we can see there are 135 services that are, being used in VLAN 1049. There are 536, north-south external faces services as well. And we have the full breakdown of the flows that make up that information. 985 bidirectional flows constitute towards this intelligence. And the important thing is, and that is the game changer, is that it is giving you the recommended firewall rules, right? Again, for the recommended firewall rules, you do not need to have NSX, but it's actually a starting point, a conversation that, to secure VLAN 1049 as if it continues to function how it is working today, but nothing else is able to talk to VLAN 1049. So it's sitting inside its own, bubble or microsegment. We are giving you this ammunition to export these rules into NSX manager to secure it, right? And again, the question then comes in that, I've been running Network Insight for 5 days and you're saying enforce these rules. The answer is that we covered it from all angles. For example, Network Insight in production is running for 30 days. And you feel that you've captured all the business functions like payroll cycle, HR, all these type of things. And you go in and enforce these rules, the recommended rules, into NSX manager. And what happens is that on day 33, somebody comes to you and say that some of those applications are not working. And this is where we will come into drop flows. And in the drop flows, there will be actually, a recommendation that you need to append to the existing rule set that you created for the previous security group. And then, that is, so basically what I'm trying to say is that zero trust model, though is very easy on paper, is actually a perpetual journey which takes some time to accomplish. And the tooling is there. From this point, we switch gear. But just before I switch gear, I wanted to show you that what we do is once you have the collector deployed, you have the collector connected to the Network Insight instance, you get this out-of-box experience where you can comfortably, replay all of this data to the customer. What you can then do is you can generate a report, which is called the assessment report. And this assessment report then, it looks like this, that, your data center is this much virtualized, this much, routed versus switched, how much of the traffic is, east-west, all the top ports and things. And it brings up a lot of unknowns as well, right? So I've been in some of the assessments in the past where we generated this report, and from the report, from the volume of the traffic, for example, this shop web tier to destination this on port 8080, the volume is like, 210 terabyte. So it was a similar type of situation with one of my customer where they said, what is this traffic, right? And they realized that it was actually a legit, traffic activity. But what happened was the developer wrote the code few years back and then obviously forgot to decommission that activity, and that had a massive impact on the network as well as the storage because everything was getting backed up. So imagine the impact on the storage from a retention perspective, but also from a bandwidth perspective as well. So it reveals a lot of unknown, but it is actually a very easy, ready, steady, go activity for you to demonstrate to the customer the value of Network Insight, that what can you see from that perspective. Okay, so back to the actual UI. So we've been talking about VLAN, right? So our use case was VLAN 1049. But really, we want to switch gear and we want to focus on application-based microsegmentation, because doing things from a security perspective and classifying it from a VLAN perspective is a very old school of thought. We are now talking about applications because we live in an application world. So here it's the same mindset, but you can see that I now have applications with the same flows. They're talking to physical servers. They have their applications talking to shared physical, they're talking to internet as well. And again, if I pick up my example, which is going to be the test example we're using for this demo, Hive training. So Hive training is the application I want to use. And if I go into the Hive training app as an example, just using top video temporarily in the essence of time, it's the same mindset, right? So it's the same mindset that's used for the VLAN, but now used for the application context, where it's saying to secure this top video application, which include these ports and these metrics and some shared services, you export these rules into NSX manager from a security perspective. But there's another angle as well. So for example, I switch gear and go into another view, which we call application. So if you see here, I type application and I said helps inside the product, means that it's already giving me application and possible permutations that I can use to build up my query. But I don't want to do anything right now. I just type application and it builds up the application tier. So what you saw in that pie chart or that donut is now demonstrated in an application, from an application lens, in Honeycomb, these beehive widgets. I can see these are the applications. The applications were created through different discovery methods that we saw in the slide. We can use tags, we can use ServiceNow integration, we can use flows, and that flow-based application discovery is basically the machine learning element, where what it does is it's looking at the flow and the traffic and the volume and many of the metrics and saying that I have a high confidence level that this MCM93 is made up of 2 tiers and 2 VMs. Where I actually do a checkbox here, it's going to show me that this is an application amongst all the discovered applications, and it's basically talking to other elements as well. So just zooming out to see where it's going. So it is going to some other ecosystems here. I can then go in and save this applications. Once this application is saved, it lands into this pool of applications, which are my production applications. I can use names as well. So I can use a server naming convention that you use in your organization. And there are some other advanced queries I can use to discover applications. So that basically the answer is the application discovery process is made simple. Again, you don't need any agent or anything whatsoever. So if I then go into the Hive training app that I want, looking for so many applications, let me just do Hive as an example. Okay, so it's here somewhere. So okay, Hive training. So if I click on Hive training, I can see the Hive training application is obviously created from a discovery process through machine learning or naming convention. And this is, made up of 4 tiers, and there are 3 VMs and 35 IP addresses. It means that, there's a lot of, physical server connectivity space. We can see that this is talking to DNS servers. It is talking to top video application that we saw in that pie chart. It's also talking to VDI pool as well. And it's also, being targeted for a migration wave, which is through the VMware's another product, which is HCX, right? Not covering it right now. So we can see that, what is the layout, and we can then quickly see that where are the shared services. So it means that the minute I do that, it's doing an impact analysis that they are shared services. So if I shut down, Hive training, all of these applications would be affected. So let's assume that Hive training is a candidate for migration. So if I then click on Hive training, it opens up this new page, which then demonstrates the whole, it just is focused on the Hive training application. So basically the 15.6 gig is the volume of traffic incoming, outgoing, 2400 flows, bidirectional flows constitute towards all of this. First the creation of this application, and then what is the behavior of this application, which we'll see in a minute. 42 countries are accessing this application. So it means that, if this application is a candidate for migration, then it will make sense to host it somewhere closer to United States, for example, so we don't incur egress or ingress charges, right? And the next obviously closest is New Zealand, right? So these will be the this will be the thought process in terms of a DC or application rationalization activity. We then have a view where we can see that this application is obviously going through internet, we've established, but it's also showing me that this application's underlying hardware ecosystem is this Dell switch when it decides to load up. I hope the demo gods are still with me. So basically it's going to I'll just quickly refresh it. Sorry, just a quick time check. How am I doing time?
I think
Okay.
you've probably got another 5 minutes, Atif.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you. So yeah, so refreshed it and fingers crossed. Okay, yeah, it worked. So basically we can see that it's actually going through the traffic's traversing through a Dell switch. It could be Cisco, it could be ACI, it could be many other things, but we have the view that it has a VLAN mismatch. It's looking at the HSRP issues. Obviously you don't want these in a production environment, so it brings in all of that telemetry to make sense of that information. So we can see that this is a Detroit branch, how many IPs are being accessed, the number of flows, and again these lines are the flows that make up all of that intelligence. We then have the throughput and the changes that have occurred for that application, right? So that is where I would stop right now in the essence of time. There are a lot of other angles to cover. The other quick angle is that if I go back to the home page, is the concept of intents. So intent is, I don't want these two VLANs to communicate with each other. So it's actually an intent, and if that intent is breached, we will be notified. It will go to email alerts or any other generate tickets and things like that. The other one is actually network maps. So the fact we are pulling in the telemetry from the entire baseline ecosystem, we have the view of the entire network map as well for our ecosystem. Sorry. So I can zoom in and see my different switches, routers in terms of their connection space. I can see if there's anything blocking from a path perspective. So it is looking at a hardcore networking element as well at the same time. Okay. Now back to the presentation quickly to close off. So we covered the machine-based application discovery, and then it's all about prevention, continuous monitoring, and then guided troubleshooting as well. So guided troubleshooting is I didn't cover, but there's actually now an element that's added in Network Insight, which basically helps you with where is the blame, where is the problem, right? So the guided troubleshooting element is there, and then you can collaborate as well. So you can raise a ticket inside Network Insight to create a guided troubleshooting element, right? So again, think of it as a beast of a product. What we're doing here in this 30-minute session is literally touching and scratching the surface in terms of what is the art of possible in order to deploy Network Insight quickly to get the most value out of it. So network assurance and verification. So I talked about intents, that if you create a criteria and things do not follow or adhere to that criteria, then bad things would happen. The last thing is application assessment, right? So the whole idea is that I showed you that report, which was virtual network assessment, and the idea is that we deploy Network Insight in a very, very quick, lean manner, and then without deploying any agents to the VM, we are just interrogating the flows, and from the flows we start to build up different stories. particularly, a security story, as well as, an application context as well, because the application's there and there's nothing stopping you from starting an application discovery based on machine learning to create those, automated discovered applications for your assessment. So the idea is that you engage the customer, you set up the environment and run the assessment, right? And then you start to do a playback around that. And then you generate the report, you play it back to the customer and say, these are the use cases and these are the tangible outcomes or benefits you see. And of course, if you're talking to your customer, then you would know already that what type of campaigns or what type of use cases the customer is trying to draw out, whether it's a decommissioning exercise, a cloud scale exercise, or an application migration exercise. So a handful of resources. So there's hands-on lab as well, so that if you want to get familiar with the product, there are some demos. There's this link to trial as well. Again, these slides will be shared. And at that point, I'll just stop in the essence of time. And if you guys have any question, please feel free to ask, or if there were any questions, sorry.
Thank you, Atif. That was a tremendous demo, and it really shows the power of the tool. And having experienced it myself, I recognize how you can go from that network discussion into a security discussion, into supporting cloud migrations and shutdowns. So, for you as partners, this is a great way that, again, you can help customers get the data they need in order to make decisions about migrations, or to think about the value of a managed service. So that, the snapshot we've shown you today, if you showed a customer that kind of data and provided that initial assessment, they would be very, very confident then that they would want to engage you in a managed service capability and continue to roll. So we've left the best till last, and thank you, Keith, for sticking with us, and thank you, audience, for sticking with us. So what we'd like to do now is to touch on cloud health, and over to you, Keith.
Fantastic, Stephen. Thank you. Hey, everybody. I'm Keith Hogan. I'm the Senior Cloud Solution Architect at Cloud Health. Thanks for having me today. I'm actually going to do the same as Atif. So I'm actually going to shut down my video because I don't want my bandwidth to be impacted. So give me a sec. So really what I'm going to talk to you today about is the value that you can derive from the Cloud Health platform, specifically for partners. So when you're talking to cloud customers and you're looking for a way to be able to remain sticky with them, is usually the term I like to use. The Cloud Health platform provides plenty of different avenues for you to increase your margin, your profitability, increase revenues, as well as providing service value adds to your customer base. So I've been at Cloud Health for just over 4 years. I joined just prior to the VMware acquisition in February 2018. So I've kind of seen the startup world of Cloud Health, and then as we've moved and become more integrated into the VMware family. So just a little bit around Cloud Health. We're currently managing over $14 billion worth of multi-cloud spend on an annual basis. So there's about 20% of the Amazon worldwide spend actually goes through the Cloud Health platform, which is a phenomenal number when you think about it. We've got 265 partners worldwide and around 18,000 customers going via the channel. So when we say we're a channel customer, we actually really mean our channel partner, our channel friendly. We really, really mean it, because there was a statistic from last year where well over 90% of all the new business driven by Cloud Health went via the channel. Okay, so very small number of deals went direct, and everything was via the channel after that. So huge growth in the channel markets. We started off as more of a kind of a direct organization as we ramped up, but over the last couple of years, the importance of the channel to us is phenomenal. So kind of moving along, the opportunity is huge. Customers are screaming for help. Stephen mentioned it in his presentation around the opportunity for services in the multi-cloud space. And you can see from these numbers, the annual growth rate is significant up to 2025, and customers are struggling. They've got a proliferation of assets, cloud resources, multiple clouds that they're trying to manage across different geographic regions, and they need help to make sense of it all and try and provide some simplicity and standardization across all of those workloads. So we commissioned the Forrester research organization to do a bit of research for us a couple of years ago, and the information we got back was regarding the expectation for partners to see a 40% increase in revenue growth over the next 2 years, but there's massive obstacles and challenges around actually getting to that number, and it's typical challenges around skills gaps, actually retaining expertise with staff, and also finding and retaining customers as well. If you get a customer, how do you keep them with the different environments being so dynamic? It's a massive challenge, and that's where Cloud Health comes in. We provide multiple capabilities, but really across these 3 main tenets. So we centralize customer management, we streamline billing for you as a partner, and then we, most importantly, drive profitability for you as well. So by centralizing customer management, like what I mean by that is we provide you with a multi-tenanted architecture. So your customer is in its own tenant, it's isolated from other environments, but you have that consolidated view at the top level. So you can see everything, and your customer has a view of their own environment that you can grant access to depending on whatever commercial agreement you have with that customer. And then in turn with that, you can then dovetail into billing and providing billing services across multiple clouds, so across Amazon, Azure, and Google, creating independent individual billing files for each one of your customers across those different clouds, but also adding in your own custom charges to those invoices and statements. So if you want to mark up a bill, if you want to add a credit, you've got the ability to do that outside of the actual normal billing structure that you get from a cloud provider. And then driving profitability is really around wrapping your service offering around the first 2 tenets. So you're providing visibility into the customer environment via Cloud Health, you're helping with billing, and then you can use the reservation reporting, the right sizing, and all the recommendation options that we have in the platform to start being strategic around how you help customers purchase discount mechanisms, as well as being clever around how you do it yourself as a partner. And I'll touch a little bit on that as I go through the demo. This is typically the kind of journey that we see partners going on when they onboard onto the Cloud Health platform. Initially, it's kind of about building that back office, getting the basics right, I would say, and then going from there, understanding what the customer's needs are, getting some basic reporting out to them initially, maybe some dashboarding, looking at the types of show back and charge back reporting that the customer needs to be able to do. And as you move up the maturity curve, you start to look at developing some service offerings, maybe looking at right sizing exercises, helping customers identify unused assets or zombie infrastructure. And then as you mature to the 3rd level and maturing and automating services, we've got partners who've been using Cloud Health for a number of years. And they have the ability to automate purchases of reservations and savings plans for customers. So they provide recommendations, but they'll also automatically go away and purchase those discount mechanisms for customers because the customers trust the recommendations coming from the platform. And all of this allows you to then start operating at scale, right? So you're starting to automate certain tasks and services around helping customers when it comes to reporting, visibility, and optimization. And that will help you get to the top of the class, best in class cloud MSP. So, again, most partners will start off at the bottom here, low margin, high touch, so kind of reactive. And the idea is to kind of get to the top here, high margin and low touch. So predictive customer management. And on the way, you start becoming more proactive with the customer. You start to offer more services to them, offer insights to them as you both progress along the maturity curve, with the idea to provide, the customer provides you with a high margin, and the customer has that predictive outcome at the end of the contract. So again, this is kind of a similar slide. You know, again, you're moving from the basics here, cost and billing, up to service enablement, and the aim is really to tie in with the customer's business KPIs. You know, like what's driving the customer in the public cloud? What do they need to achieve? How can we integrate the service offerings that we have via the Cloud Health platform into those business KPIs to really leverage proper service integration and predictive recommendation engines as we mature across the curve. So, you know, at the end of that, then you expect to be like an expert in financial operations. So you become the customer's cloud economist. You've got operational excellence and expertise around cloud operations, and you're also driving cloud security and compliance expertise as well. So, you know, some of the things that we've seen partners build from scratch is documentation around best practices when it comes to financial operations. Helping customers develop KPIs, right? Customers are struggling. How do they build a cloud center of excellence? What do they need to do? Who do they need to have involved within the organization? And Cloud Health helps partners to actually deliver that type of insights and value back to their customer base. This is a great slide, really, because it kind of shows you what you can do with the platform, you know, from a kind of a basic offering where you're just doing some standard type of reporting, all the way up to offering kind of, you know, a premium service across all of these different elements. So, you know, optimization, customized reporting, you're looking at security and governance, and then you've got the ability to offer console access to the platform as well, if you so choose. So, you know, you could run the platform as a complete managed service where the customer never logs in, or you may decide to give the customer access to certain parts of the platform. Again, the platform is for you to do what you want as a partner, and you can then offer out different services depending on the customer opportunity. These are the types of kind of revenues we see. You know, again, customer or partners will have different types of models, but, you know, you can charge for different services around the health check and infrastructure right sizing per month, or you could do it maybe over the year. Again, it's entirely up to you how you model that commercial structure. And this is kind of around how do you kind of differentiate what you're doing from a partner perspective compared to the customer? And again, I'll touch on this during the demo, but what this slide is basically saying is, you know, your view is going to be different to what the customer sees. You then have the ability to create uplifts on that customer view, as I mentioned earlier. So you might want to add in a charge, a custom charge, or a custom credit. And what you see in your tenant will be the aggregated view, and the customer will have like an individual view dependent on what credits or discounts you've actually assigned into that customer tenant. So full flexibility when it comes to your commercial offering, and that should hopefully help you increase your margins. The migration assessment, I'll touch on this during the demo. This is part of our data center module. So, you know, Cloud Health, we focus on public cloud, but we have a fantastic offering when it comes to hybrid and on-premise environments. And in this example, we give partners the ability to offer like a data center migration, so they can understand what the cost would be to move those VMs from the on-prem environment into the different public clouds that are available. And we'll give you a breakdown on the cost, whether, you know, it's going to be an on-demand view or maybe like a discount mechanism view backed up by a reservation. This is a fantastic capability as well, where we've helped a lot of partners map to the Amazon Solution Provider Program and the Azure Expert MSP. So we've got a lot of documentation to help organizations who are starting out with the cloud providers and who want to build a cloud practice with these large organizations. We have all of the kind of paths and the know-how to get you to that point. These are some of the customers we have currently in the EMEA region. So our direct customers here on the left-hand side, some well-known names, and then some fantastic partners across Europe as well. So in the UK, Israel, and many other countries across Europe. CloudReach is a really good case study. They've been with us really from the beginning, or close to the beginning in Europe. They're born in a cloud organization, and they offer some fantastic services around operations and financial operations and DevOps. They use Cloud Health as a central tenant for those services that they offer. And they've got some fantastic like enterprise customers on their books as well. Okay, fantastic. So I've kind of flown through the slides. I've got about maybe 10 minutes or so for a demo, so I'll be pretty quick. Just give me a sec. Any questions on that, guys, before I continue? Yeah, will I continue on?
Yes, please.
Cool.
And you've got more than 10 minutes if you need it.
All right, perfect. Good stuff. Okay, so this is the platform. So this is the Cloud Health platform. I'm actually going to flick between a couple of different tenants. So you'll notice we've got a partner menu here, and then if I flick over again, we don't have here. So this is the like direct environment. This is what you would see if you were a direct customer, or if you were a customer of a partner. You would have your own individual tenant in the platform. And you can see all of the clouds that we support. So the big boys, Amazon, Azure, Google. We have OCI, we support VMC, and we've got our data center connection as well, where we can connect into a vCenter environment, as well as supporting VROPS integration as well. So pure, true multi-cloud view across public and private, as well as hybrid views. And from a direct customer view, you can log into the platform and you have access to all of this. As a partner, you may decide not to give the customer access to everything. So there's full role-based access control, where you have the capability to allocate certain privileges to that specific customer, depending on whatever commercial offering is available. So you may not want the customer to see the recommendation engine because you want to offer services off the back of the insights that you derive from it, and you may only give them access to some level of the reporting or some dashboarding, and that's purely up to you as a partner. When I flick over to the partner menu, so you can see here we have our partner view, and this is only available if you're like an MSP organization working with Cloud Health. So in here, this is where you can actually manage all of your customers. So you've got your kind of listing and your partner billing section. So all of the customers that you bring on board onto Cloud Health will be viewed here in the customer list section. So you can see all the customer names. You can see how much money they've actually spent across the public clouds, and it's a great way to be able to kind of get a snapshot of what's happening in the environment. I mentioned during the presentation about the multi-tenant view. So you have the capability in the platform to kind of drop a level deeper. So this is the top level, the partner level, which sees all of the aggregated spend across all of the cloud providers. If you then want to maybe jump into a specific customer, you can come down here and you can switch into the customer, or you can change the view here at the bottom, the customer switcher. So this is where you can actually go from your level into the customer level. So I'll jump in here to Fort Point. And now I'm actually viewing the customer view, right? So it isn't the partner view, it's just the customer view. And I've got all my reporting, and your logo will also appear here as well, okay? So one of the kind of cool things that we do with the platform is we have the ability to create individual kind of billing files for each customer based on the usage in their tenant. We call that partner generated billing. So partner generated billing it gives you as a partner the ability to streamline billing, add in your own custom charges, as I mentioned earlier, and you can manage all of that via the platform. So I'll touch a little bit on the billing section now, just conscious of time, but from a billing perspective, what you can do is, if I jump back in here to the partner menu, we provide partner generated billing across Amazon, we do it for Azure, and we also do it for Google. So, again, it's true partner generated billing. It's through multi-cloud capability. And if I jump into Fort Point, this is kind of where you would go to create the specific bills for those customers. So you've got your Amazon, we support Azure CSP, we've got our EAs for Azure, and we also have GCP as well. So the idea here is, if you've got a consolidated bill with Amazon, or you've got an EA with Azure, or you've got a billing account or a master billing account with Google, you need a way to be able to take the Amazon accounts or the Azure subscriptions or the Google sub-billing accounts and split them away from your master bill. And that's what this capability does. It allows you to take the accounts or subscriptions or projects, or sorry, sub-billing accounts, and assign them into the customer tenant. And that's exactly what we would do. So we would see all the available billing accounts or sub-billing accounts here, all the available subscriptions, and we would also see all of the Amazon accounts. And we can then start adding those into the customer tenant. So when the customer logs in, they will only see the data belonging to those specific accounts. Once that's created, what we then do is we have the ability to, and I'm going to show you very quickly. We then have the ability to create what we call partner generated billing. So this is where we do some processing of, this is for Amazon specifically, but we do some processing of the Amazon bill. We will take the cost and usage report. We will remove things like partner credits and discounts. And we also isolate non-partner credits as well. So that's something that you can add back into the customer at a later date if you so choose. And once we start this processing pipeline, we'll also remove things like AWS support, any volume discounts or tiering benefits that a customer may get because they're part of your consolidated bill. So we take all of that stuff out and we revert all of the usage back to on demand. That's quite important because we will actually take any kind of reservation or savings plan discounts that may have floated from one customer to the other. If those customers are part of your consolidated bill as a partner, we will actually reverse all of that and we change all of their usage back to on demand. So what that basically means is the customer is getting a bill as if they were a direct customer of Amazon, and we strip out all of the benefits that that customer may get from a pricing perspective because they're part of your consolidated bill. Now, you guys as the partner will still have all of that discounts, all of that benefits, because that will all still roll up into your bill, but the customer will have its own individual cost and usage reports based on what we see in the platform. So what that will lead to is that will allow you to drive probably double-digit margins just around cloud billing using Cloud Health. This is kind of the last area then of the process where we allow you to add in your own custom charges, as I mentioned earlier. So any billing rules are run, custom price books. Custom price books are something where you can, billing rules are kind of at the account or subscription or project level where you can add in your own charge. A custom price book for Amazon specifically allows you to target a service. So if you wanted to change the rate maybe of CloudFront or in Amazon, or if you wanted to uplift the charge of an EC2 instance or even discount it, you would use a custom price book. And a custom price book, I think I have an example here somewhere. 1 second. These are examples of custom price books. So very quickly, you know, we can actually change the rate that CloudFront is being charged in the customer tenant. You can see here we've got HTTP request usage for CloudFront for the US and Canada, and we're actually going to change the rate. You can also change the data transfer out for CloudFront as well. So this is a common one that partners will use for Amazon because they get beneficial pricing from Amazon for CloudFront. This is for EDP, enterprise discounts, where Cloud Health can help when a partner maybe has negotiated a discount, so maybe say 15% discount with Amazon on the enterprise discount program. You could use a custom price book to maybe pass on 11% of that discount, which is basically what we're doing here. So we've got like 11% discount across all of these services. And then the partner will be able to keep 4% of that discount because they've offered that negotiation service. So yeah, so some of the use cases that you can use custom price books for. So jumping back over to the demo, 1 sec. The last thing I kind of wanted to show you in here was the ability we have to kind of generate statements as well. So you can use the platform to generate a statement. This is where, you know, we've created all of the billing files, and then you want to be able to send those billing files out to a customer. So, you know, you can see we've got estimated bills here and then final bills. And again, if I pick on 4 points, we've got a final bill here of 847K, and then I can actually download that statement as a PDF, as a CSV. We've got all our Azure options, and we've got our GCP as well. We will also upload this to a bucket of your choice as a partner. So that allows you programmatic access to the billing files. And again, a lot of partners will take that billing file and then change it into their own template. You can use our templates. You'll actually see your logo on the statements that go out to the customer, but you may decide to change that if you need to. And again, you should have full access to the S3 APIs within Amazon to actually do that. Okay, so I mentioned the custom price books and the ability to add in a charge at a kind of service level. This is the billing rule option that we have, where you can add a service in more at the kind of account level. So depending what cloud you choose, Amazon or Azure, you can come in here and basically select a customer, and then you can say, well, I want to pick the Azure enrollments or all the CSP accounts, and then if I say Azure enrollments, you've got the ability then to pick the enrollment, or you can pick a specific subscription or group of subscriptions if you wanted to, and then scope the billing rule to that. So we just added in here. It's quite easy. MSP fee, say 20%, and that will appear on the invoice or statement that we generate in the platform. So you could do it as a kind of a flat fee. You can also do it as a percentage of spend if you wanted to. So say 10%. And then you create it, and it's added into the customer statement that you generate from the platform. So that's pretty much what I wanted to show from the partner billing section. I'm going to hop back over to the kind of main console that I showed you earlier. So just give me a second, I'll get that back up.
Keith, we've got kind of 4 minutes. Is 2 minutes enough for you?
Yep. Give me 2 minutes. I'll just quickly run through the capability in here. So, from a direct partner standpoint, and you're offering services to the customer, like what is it that we do? So, you have the ability here to create your own multi-cloud view. What you can do is you can create custom reporting in here via something we call perspectives. So perspectives are a way to logically group cloud assets for customers. And this ties into the financial operations use case, where you can create custom reports for customers across multiple clouds. So if you wanted to see your cost broken out by, say, production across multiple clouds, we have the multi-cloud view, and you can then see your production costs for Amazon, your production costs for Azure, etc. You also have the ability to kind of create those views in each public cloud as well. And then we have these fantastic dashboards that allow you to track KPIs across customers' usage. So you want to see how much they've actually provided from a discount perspective, how much they've saved, how much they're actually wasting when they buy savings plans and reservations, and what type of discount mechanisms they have in the platform. And again, all of this is available in the dashboard views. We have a health check. So this is a great report for partners, especially ones starting out, where you can show customers areas where they can save money. So, how many of your assets are unused. You can see operational savings here through the right sizing report. And then we have reservation management recommendations as well. We also track cloud governance. So we have a security risk report based on the Center for Internet Security and cloud governance. So all of this report can be wrapped into a service that you can offer those customers, maybe prospects that are just starting out. These are the savings plans views, and then you've got your kind of reservation report showing you all the recommendations you can buy, as well as right sizing all your EC2 instances, and the recommendations are there as well. So, the last thing to show really is just the policy engine. This is where you can create your own policies in the platform, driving different behaviors in the customer environment. So more around the governance use case, helping customers, with tagging issues maybe. So if a customer wants to understand when someone spins up an asset in the environment that hasn't been tagged, maybe missing a tag, you can create this view here. So I'll just choose alert logic. I'll choose app state. We'll save the condition. And then I can add an action, and the action could be to maybe delete the EC2 instance with approval. So we could create a workflow and some automation, or we may just simply email somebody within the managed service provider who can then proactively go to the customer and have a chat to them about it. So that's pretty much it, guys. There's loads more in here that we can dive into, but if anyone has any interest in seeing a more in-depth demo, then by all means, let me know. Over to you, Stephen.
Brilliant. Thanks, Keith. And sorry to rush you at the end there, but we're running kind of very tight on time. Just while we finish up here, could I put up a poll and ask you all to provide us some feedback on the workshop and what you've seen this morning? So if you could just take a minute or two and complete the poll for us, that would be a tremendous help for us. Thank you so much to all the speakers for joining us this morning and presenting on your particular areas. And I really hope you as partners have seen the value of the VMware solutions and can understand how the solutions will enable you to create consulting services as well as managed services. So, for you, it's a way of creating business, creating traction with your customers. If there are any questions, we've still got some of the speakers, so you can use the Q&A function and come back to us with questions. So Bengt, just while we wait for the survey to finish, there were a couple of questions about VCD integration. So I don't know whether you can make any comments on that.
Yeah, so we have VCD integration directly into VMware Ops, and anything coming in from VCD is just like another vCenter sort of, and the information that you get there can be used for reporting and for costing and total cost of ownership, return of investment, and also as a basis for the capacity planning, whatnot.
Okay, that's brilliant. Thank you.
There, yeah, to elaborate on that, we used to have an app called the Tenants app for VMware operations, and that contains a billing module. So if you do not have any type of billing module within VMware Ops, of course, and you don't have one yourself, and then the showback and the chargeback type of results that you get from VMware Ops can also be put a pricing model through a tenant app, and you use that as a billing app as well to create billing.
That's brilliant. I'll just look to see if there's any other questions. There was one other question, Bengt, about kind of baselining. So I think you talked about deviation from kind of a baseline in the demo. So I don't know if you can make any comments on that.
Yeah, so anything would, of course, create a history here. So you can see what's going on under a low type of usage and whenever you expect hard usage. So you would see trending of any metrics that you get out of your real-life operations, and you can put that into your dashboards to see what's going on. So I guess the trending lines that you get here is this closer we get to what we would call a baseline then. But there's no hard limits or anything. So when you do alerting, it's out of the box. It's more with a dynamic trends and dynamic threshold. So you can, if you want to, set hard alerts as well, if you want to. And yeah.
Oh, sorry, somebody's got a hand up. So Wally, I think I've allowed you to unmute, ask to unmute. Can you talk, Wally, or? Allowed to talk. So Wally, I think you can unmute yourself now.
Yeah, sure. Did I request to be unmuted?
Well, you put your hand up, so we thought there might be a question.
Sorry, mistake.
So you don't have a question?
Nope, not at the moment.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that.
No worries. Yeah.
So I think that kind of concludes our session. We've come to time. we're all available for additional questions, and very happy to engage you and do a specific session for you on either the whole kind of portfolio or just focus in on one of the solution areas. So I thank you again for your time and have a great rest of the day. Thank you, everybody.